Once you're live, I'll let you know. All right, Councillor Rivera, it looks like you are live on YouTube and you are all set and ready to go.
Thank you, Ms. Mihalcik. Let's call the Public Works meeting to order for October 13th. Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Pusula?
Chairman Christopher Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Romana Beta.
Here.
Councillor Joanne Vigil Koppler.
Here.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Signe Lindell.
She's excused.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pusula. Next, approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff? Ms. Wheeler?
No changes from staff, Chairman.
Mr. Jones?
No changes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval of the agenda by Councilwoman Vigil Koppler, second by Councilor Beta. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Pusula?
Chairman Christopher Rivera.
Yes.
Councillor Romana Beta.
Yes.
Councillor Joanne Vigil Koppler.
Yes.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, approval of the consent agenda. Any changes from staff, Ms. Wheeler?
No changes, Chairman.
Any changes, Mr. Jones?
No changes, Chairman. Thank you.
All right, anything the committee would like to pull off? Let's start with Councilwoman Vigil Koppler.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to pull 9A, C, and D.
A, C, and D.
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Garcia?
No additional items, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilor Beta?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, and I have nothing in addition to those either. So what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion for approval is amended by Councilwoman Vigil Koppler, second by Councilor Garcia. Any further discussion? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Pusula?
Chairman Christopher Rivera.
Yes.
Councillor Roman Abeta.
Yes.
Councillor Joanne Vigil Koppler.
Yes.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
And motion passes.
Thank you. Next, approval of the minutes from September 29th, 2020. Any changes from staff? Ms. Wheeler?
No changes, Chairman.
Mr. Jones?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything from the committee? Wishes of the committee?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval of the minutes from Councilor Beta, second from Councilor Garcia. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Pusula.
Chairman Christopher Rivera.
Yes.
Councillor Roman Abeta.
Yes.
Councillor Joanne Vigil Koppler.
Yes.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks. Now we're on to number 6, public comment. Have we had anything submitted to you, Ms. Trujillo?
Mr. Chairman, there is no public comment for public utilities.
All right. And how about from you, Ms. Pusula?
Chairman Christopher Rivera, there is a Miguel Gabaldon. I apologize if I mispronounce his last name, but he is waiting in the attendee section.
All right. Joe, are you able to let Mr. Gabaldon in? Joe, are you on? Mr. Gabaldon, can you hear us? Mr. Gabaldon, are you there?
Yes, I think I'm here now. A bunch of squares on my screen popped up.
Okay, we can hear you. I just promoted you to a panelist, so you have 2 minutes to make your comments.
All right, good evening, Chairman Rivera and councilors, members of the Public Works Committee, Public Works and Utilities Committee, city and staff. Just want to express a couple of things regarding the Interfaith Community Shelter Group item on the agenda. I commend the folks there who are doing tremendous work in trying to address a growing need here in Santa Fe with all the challenges they face with the national economy, COVID-19, and everything that goes on in the world, and particularly in Santa Fe, I guess. However, I just think we might have to stop and step back a little bit, and as we continue to take on these challenges and do our best to address the needs of the homeless community in Santa Fe, that we look to see how things can move forward in a different manner. 10, 12 years at one location, continuous impacts that come from an attractive destination has become an attractive nuisance for a lot of people. I do not shun anybody who has to go through the work to help the homeless, nor do I wish anything bad on the homeless either, but it just gets a little exhausting, difficult, and basically unsafe for people who have to go through all these processes. So I would just ask, I sent an email. I apologize to anybody who's on the Quality of Life Committee because you got pretty close to the same email again tonight. But I mean, things need to be looking, the city needs to be looking forward in a different direction. And I hope as we do so, it's not just no offense taken here, not just another rubber stamp of moving something along in the process, but we kind of like look a little different because things have changed, and it isn't fair to residents and business community members in an area to continuously bear some of these difficult situations that they do. So again, I thank you for your time. Appreciate the work you're all doing, and look forward to seeing how this matter proceeds, as well as many of the interesting challenges that we face in Santa Fe. Have a good evening and a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabaldon. Did you submit the email to on the agenda? It gives Ms. Pasula's email address so we can put it into the minutes.
I did not. I just sent it to yourself, Chairman Rivera, and the committee members. I will quickly forward it to Ms. Priscilla as well.
You can do that, or I can forward it to her as well, whatever is convenient for you.
Your plate is much fuller than mine, so I can take care of that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for the comments.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Ms. Pasula, were there any other besides Mr. Gabaldon?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, thank you. No further public comment. Now we're on item 7, presentation and information items. Update on the Adopt a Medium program, Carol Branch. Welcome, Ms. Branch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay.
Were you going to share something with us, a video, PowerPoint?
I was going to share a PowerPoint. We submitted it to, I forget who, and Charlene is now looking for it because we submitted it to Joe. And
I apologize about that. I did not know you submitted it to me.
We did.
No. Hi, this is Charlene. Chair Rivera, apologies. No, we submitted it as part of our packet. Can that be brought up? Can Emily bring that up?
I think Joe can do it if you're ready to share your screen.
Sure. I'll need to get it. Give me 1 sec, please. May I ask when it was sent?
It was submitted. It was actually submitted to Jamie Ray.
Okay, so yeah, I did not receive the PowerPoint. That's not something I normally get. I apologize about that.
Our apologies. This is actually our first presentation for this committee, and we apologize for that. Carol, do you want to just give a verbal, or do you want to ask for postponement?
If I could for 1 minute, the presentation is actually in the packet. So I just pulled it up from the OpenGov. So maybe, I don't know, Joe, if you can run it from there, or if somebody else could, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Regina.
It's on Prime Gov.
Yeah, in
Okay,
the packet.
Let me log into Prime Gov here. Sorry, guys, I'm not normally used to doing this stuff, so just give me a sec, please.
No, it looks like I could share my screen.
Okay.
All right, let's see how we do here.
I've got it now too. I apologize. I didn't think of that, but I can share my screen. I've got it now.
Yeah.
So Joe, can you have, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. We're on. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. See, I just don't know how to change the slide.
Just tell me when you want to change.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Carol Branch, and I'm the director of Keep Santa Fe Beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to present an update of the Adopt a Medium program. So there are approximately 500 medians. This first slide still. There are approximately 500 medians in Santa Fe. And of those 500 medians, Keep Santa Fe Beautiful manages close to 50. The adopted medians are mainly around the downtown area and on Old Pecos Trail. This program began 35 years ago with 10 medians. And when I became the director 2 years ago, my board of directors and I chose to keep the program, but we all agreed it needed to be renovated. Next slide, please. As staff and our board began this renovation, we set these goals. First of all, our intent was never to grow the program. We knew it needed a new contract that included a safety plan, as we have volunteers working out in traffic. The program had to be sustainable and the adopters had to be accountable. We also wanted to elevate the look of the medians adopted. We no longer wanted just colored rock thrown down and a sign put on the median. Next slide, please. So this new contract took over a year in the making. There were many people involved, including city managers from both Environmental Services Department, Parks Department, also our legal department, and our Keep Santa Fe Beautiful subcommittee. We had to assess all 86 medians. We found that a third had been abandoned and only a few were being maintained on a regular basis. The development of this new contract also had to include safety and accountability. We had to contact all the adopters and transition them into a new contract with many new regulations. Next slide, please. So the Adopt a Median management team includes a lot of people. This program took a lot of time to renovate, and it is also very time consuming to maintain. We have 2 designated staff members that coordinate the program and led the renovation, including the assessments, trainings, and contract transitions. Basically, we have 26 different volunteer groups that we must oversee on a regular basis. We also have the Keep Santa Fe Beautiful board members, the Adopt a Median subcommittee that has really aided the staff during the transition. These volunteers will now assist in tracking the median maintenance, ensuring that the new reporting standards, recruiting new adopters, and recognizing the adopters for their efforts. Next slide, please. Here is an example of one of our renovated medians. This median I forget the street. This median was the most complained about median in the program. It was transformed and adopted by Chris McClary, owner of McClary Fine Arts Gallery, who is the Adopt a Median subcommittee chairman of Keep Santa Fe Beautiful. He set the example of how to elevate the look of a median. This transformation took many hours of labor. They had to remove all the rocks, the dead vegetation, and had to add good soil and native plants, and not to mention the monetary cost. Next slide, please. The new contract highlights. So we now have a SAFE program. All the adopters are required to attend a safety training prior to beginning the work on their medians, and also they have to carry liability insurance. They also had to attend, the adopters had to attend an orientation, and also they have to be accountable. They have to complete monthly median maintenance and report it to the Keep Santa Fe Beautiful website, including before and after photos. Next slide, please. Here's another example of a median on Old Pecos Trail. Many of these medians had a natural landscape, but they were never weeded and the plants were overgrown. Now here is one that is weeded, and the adopter cleaned it up and has intentions of planting a lot more plants in the near future. Next slide. Here is our monthly reporting form. Michelle Babcock, Keep Santa Fe Beautiful staff member, has made it so easy for the adopters to report monthly and to upload their before and after photos. It's just an example. Next slide, please. Here is another example of a median that was transformed. This was actually in the middle of the renovation. We didn't get a before photo. This poor median was really an eyesore. Next slide, please. So here are 2 after photos, and I'd like to give a shout out to Santa Fe rugby team. They worked very hard to salvage the vegetation that was on the median, and they added just a few native drought-resistant plants, and they hardscaped it beautifully. And now this median is not only beautiful, but easy to maintain. Incidentally, every adopter is given a list of all the native drought-resistant plants that are acceptable to plant on the medians. Next slide, please. Here is a map of most of the adopted medians. To the left is a map of the downtown area and the names of the adopters. And to the right is the map for Old Pecos Trail. And we have a few that need to be readopted. Next slide, please. So here's our program renovation summary. Before, we had 86 medians that had signs on them. And again, a third of those medians had been adopted. The adopters never had any safety training, and the medians were really, the adopted medians were spread out all over Santa Fe. So we've kind of condensed them into 2 areas. We had too many adopted medians for staff and Keep Santa Fe Beautiful board members to manage. Now we have 47 maintained medians as up to date. We have currently 26 adopters, and mainly they are professional landscapers. And we have limited the 2 areas to very high impact areas, downtown area and Old Pecos Trail. And we have a few medians that are currently up for readoption. Next slide, please. Just would like to thank you for hearing our presentation, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Branch. Any questions for Ms. Branch? I can't see all of you. Wait. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give express appreciation to Carol Branch and her staff, and maybe Charlene's staff, and I'm not sure Parks staff, for all of this coordination. I know there are some people who lost their median and weren't very happy, but you know, these pictures look great, and I hope that we can encourage more people on the south side to adopt medians. I'm not sure how that's going, but a lot of these I know are close to downtown. You know, maybe the median payers want to get a lot more attention, you know, because they're downtown, but they look really nice, a lot better than they were. And the street in question, I think, was Paseo de Peralta. So thank you, Carol. Great job.
Thank you, Counselor. To answer your question, again, this program takes many, many hours of not only staff time, but Keep Santa Fe Beautiful board members' time. And so we wanted to just contain it to the high visibility areas of downtown. We didn't intend to grow the program. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the comments.
Councilor Beta, did you have anything?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Councilor Garcia?
No questions, but thank you, Ms. Branch, for the thorough presentation. I appreciate, you know, the work on our medians. You know, it's always a pressing and highly talked about issue in our city, and I really appreciate you kind of looking at rehauling it and making our city more beautiful in that aspect. And hopefully we can gather more sponsors and you know, beautify more medians throughout Santa Fe. I think utilizing what we just saw and potentially replicating that and showing how folks can do something beautiful and awesome like that in a cost-effective and cost-efficient manner, it could be a win-win for the city. So thank you so much for leading this initiative.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia.
Looks like no other questions, so thank you, Ms. Branch. Appreciate you giving us the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
On to item 8, our action items on the consent agenda. Item A, request for approval of a lease agreement between the city and the Interfaith Community Shelter Group, or Pete's Place. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, you pull this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to say I do favor approving this. I noted in at least one of the emails we received that apparently in the past, prior to the lease being or expiring and being renegotiated or up for renewal, apparently there were group discussions that were had to bring people in the neighborhoods and others who had interest in this together to discuss how any issues could be resolved. And it sounded kind of neat because then people got to express their positive feedback as well as any frustrations and things, and they seem to work as a group to improve things. And I really like that kind of approach, and I'm hoping that we cannot lose sight of working together like that, where we have make an effort to have some cohesiveness so that everybody can, buy in and get at least some of their concerns heard and maybe some creative solutions. So I just want to say that because I think it's a good idea, and I hope we can do that and keep our heads together on that for the future. The next question I had when I originally looked at this was I looked at the committee sheets, and I noted that the Finance Committee, I don't know if it says approved to move forward to quality of life for further discussion. So I'm not sure. I guess they took a vote on moving it forward, but I don't know if they moved it forward with the recommendation. So it just in a nutshell, and also with quality of life, because some of you are on the same committee, I just want to know if there was any headway or anything different that was discussed where we can not lose sight of some good practices moving forward and make some headway on this. Anybody on finance? Councilor Roman, maybe you might want to.
Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, yes, we had a lengthy discussion at finance regarding not just Pete's Place, but the city's response to homelessness, the problem in general. Ultimately, what the Finance Committee decided to do was to approve the lease as presented with 4 years. And then our recommendation was continue the discussion at quality of life with the bigger picture regarding the city's response to the homeless situation.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councilor Garcia, anything from quality of life that you wanted to add?
I think we ultimately did approve this. There was some councilors that abstained from the vote, but it got approval to move forward. There was some discussion at length in regards to sustainability planning in regards to the lease currently is 4 years. Where do we, and I brought this kind of questioning forth, where do we see ourselves in 4 years? Are we going to be asking for another extension on the lease? Are we looking at maybe relocating the shelter? I think ultimately it was determined this is a partnership between the city, the shelter, and local residents that we need to work together to address the issues that are currently happening and determine what sustainability might look like. If I recall correctly, Kara had some ideas how we might be able to start looking at sustainability and working towards progress towards the future. I think everybody's in agreement that the services being provided by the shelter are extremely critical, and these are services that City of Santa Fe needs direly. And especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, the services that are able to be provided are lower because of the capacity issues, and they can't treat as many residents. And I guess that's why I brought forth the idea: how can we look at the sustainability component? Should COVID-19 still be affecting us 4 years from now, and we have capacity issues? How do we continue to support those community members that do need the services that might not be able to be admitted into Pete's Place. So I think we had a lengthy discussion around that, and we heard from Mr. Yohalam and Joe in regards to what their thoughts were on the matter. But yeah, that's ultimately what we kind of discussed a lot about. I don't remember, Mr. Chair. I think you were in that meeting too. I can't recall.
Yeah, I think there was some discussion about having more frequent meetings with the neighbors. So I can't remember if it was Councilwoman Lindell that had brought that up or Councilwoman Villarreal. So, we'll see where that goes possibly tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you. It occurred to me that while many have said that the shelter, Pete's Place, has outgrown its capacity, it seems to me we could still have Pete's Place in the future and open up another shelter, maybe in a different part of town, and continue to build on that and service the homeless for their needs. It's not to say that, we've outgrown it, so let's just pack up and move. I think it's important to, we do have issues, big issues, and, wouldn't hurt to consider opening one at another location and maybe having some of the over capacity at Pete's Place move in, or be closer. I don't really know. I'm not sure. I've never seen a map of where everybody is, but I do see people around the city, and I have no idea where they hunker down for the evening or even during the day, or where they get all of their needs met. So I'm glad that this discussion is continuing, and I'm glad that unfortunately for Pete's Place, having to go through this some more and for a longer time, but it's good to have a discussion more so than just approving a lease and go on with life. There's a real need, and I think we need to keep that in the forefront, and we need to press forward with more original and creative ideas at the same time. But I want to thank Pete's Place. I know you all are here and you do a tremendous job. I know that the people that you help very much appreciate you. I hope they tell you, I'm sure they do. And I just want you to know that I think the counselors here and on the governing board very much appreciate what you do. And I'm sorry that we delayed you, but you're still cranking, and you got a little bit of uncertainty month to month, but I'm sure this will settle down for you. And we're always wanting to hear your ideas for the future. What things do you see that you think can work, including keeping Pete's Place? So,
Mr. Yohalam, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Hill Coppler, thank you for your kind remarks. Just one or two quick things I want to point out. Number one, we are not exceeding our capacity. When there's no COVID, we're slightly below our authorized capacity, and we've recently spent about $250,000 of our own money on renovations to try to make the building serve the people we take care of even better. So the building's fine. Right now in COVID, we're limited to 36 people instead of having between 100 and 120 during the winter season. And we found locations for others at a motel where we're providing vouchers, and we're counting on the city to pick up the other third. And they are working with Salvation Army and the Midtown campus, and I think we're moving forward in that way. We've tried very hard to make this place not have an impact on the neighbors. The location was chosen after a year of searching by the city. It was chosen because of its proximity to other services and also the homeless can get there, volunteers can get there, the police and fire department can get there. And this was a city chosen location, and we think the location does work, and we think that the size of the building is fine. The problem is that anywhere you put us, in any of your districts, it will necessarily have an impact. It will take more than we can do by ourselves to minimize that impact. It will take a number of city services that have been discussed in the other committees. I'm happy to repeat them here. We have done a tremendous amount, 10, 15 things we've done to try to improve the situation for the neighbors, but we can't operate off our property lines. And so we're limited to what we can do. We have no authority to go in the street and order somebody to move. But we are working closely, as Kira Ochoa can explain to you, working closely with the city for the city to provide behavioral health and police services to the community to limit the impact on the neighbors. Where will we be after 4 years? Who knows? We asked for a 9-year lease. And the city said, no, we'll give you 4 years. So we said, okay. And we'll see where we are after 4 years. Answering Councilor Garcia's question, I think it's very likely we'll be back because the people we serve are not the people who are likely to succeed in housing, even with support services. We serve the bottom layer of people who are homeless, people who have severe mental illness and mental illness and substance abuse problems. And I think they're going to always be around, and you're going to always need an emergency shelter like us. But if Build to Zero puts us out of business, I can tell you we would be very happy to walk away knowing that we had helped save people from dying in the winter, and the city has moved everybody on. But I think as a practical matter, we're going to need to be there. And so the question really is, what can be done to try to minimize the impact on the neighbors? And Ms. Ochoa has a lot of great ideas. We are doing our part. And thank you for your support very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything further. I guess I have to ask this question. How do you pronounce your last name? When I knew you at the city, it was Yohalem.
No, it's always been Yohalem.
Yohalem. Okay, well, good. I'm not sure how many on the committee know that the esteemed Mr. Yohalem was in the city attorney's office for a few years. Great service to the city, even then, and now much more again. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
If I can just correct you, Mr. Chairman, Councilor, you knew me at the Taxation and Revenue Department, not at the city. I was the chief counsel of Tax and Rev in the late 1980s.
Yeah. Okay. I think I got you confused with Steve Kopelman then.
Maybe so. He was at the city attorney.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions from committee members? All right, I did want to follow up from some questions that I had at quality of life. I believe the fire chief is on. Chief, we talked about the inspections that were done, both from fire and also from CID after the last remodel was done at the shelter. Were you able to track down any information on those?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yes, sir. So I received an email from Joe with documentation of his CID inspections from the state during the remodel. And then I did receive copies of the inspections that were done by our fire investigators, one in 2019 and one in October 1st, 2020. So I received those inspection forms. The inspection that took place on October 1st, 2020, there was an exit light that needed to be replaced, and then just documentation that the alarm system had been maintained.
And have we received that information back?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the client, Pete's Place, has up to 10 days to request inspection. At this point, I'm not aware of a request for the reinspection, so they still have until this Friday coming up for their 10 days, and then the inspector will go back out to see if they replace the exit light and have documentation.
So it's 10 business days.
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay. And what's the difference between what CID does and what our fire inspectors do?
Mr. Chair, I have next to me one of our fire investigators, and I'll defer that question to him so I don't misspeak.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good evening. This is Geronimo Abrego with the City of Santa Fe Fire Department, Fire Inspector. The difference what CID does for the building is because it's a city-owned building. The state does the building plan review and the acceptances of anything that happens within the building when it comes to the building itself, the new construction, things like that. So in this instance, a remodel was done, and it had gone through CID, which is the Construction Industries Division of the state. We do annual inspections based off our city ordinance in Chapter 12, Fire Prevention Bureau, and this falls within R1, which is transient in nature, and that is why we are inspecting it on an annual basis.
Yeah, I had some question about R1 as well. Is that the right area to put it in as far as inspections go?
We looked into it, and we thought it would be the best classification for the occupancy because it is transient in nature. And we've also done some research in reference to it and some forums around, and that's how we classified it as an R1.
So you're comfortable with that classification?
Yes, sir. The R1 classification requires that, along with the city ordinances, we do the annual fire inspection, but the classifications of R1 is that, it's just regulated based off of the type of material that's in the building. It also has to be sprinklered. It has to have an alarm. In this case, the hood is tied into the fire alarm too. The type 1 cooking hood is tied into the fire alarm as well. So anything that goes off within the building will allow a fire response.
Okay. And can you explain to me why the state does one inspection, but our fire department does the other one? I thought we were prohibited from really doing inspections on our own buildings.
Well, in this case, it's a city-owned building. I would assume that the state would do the inspection, but for my inspection last year, I went out there for a question that was brought up by the water division, and there was a water meter that was attached to the fire riser. Upon my inspection, I actually did a full inspection of the building, and that's why I did the inspection. And then the R1 is a city ordinance inspection, and when it's classified in R1, then that's why we would do the annual inspection.
Okay, Chief Babcock, do you know why we're inspecting our own buildings and not having the state fire marshal's office do that?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my understanding, which I'm trying to get written documentation, is our retired fire marshal, former fire marshal, and the state fire marshal is also retired, had an agreement that the state fire marshal will give jurisdiction to the city fire inspectors to do these inspections because they weren't getting completed. So my understanding that I've only received verbally, and I'm still looking for documentation both from the city and from the state to back that, is public schools and city buildings were not getting inspected on an annual basis. So they came to an agreement to allow the city inspectors to do this. Once I get that documentation, I will forward it to you, Mr. Chair, and the remaining members of the council and the governing body.
All right. Do you think there's a chance we'll be able to have that by tomorrow night's meeting, or is this probably further down the road?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I have been working on this since finance last Monday, and I have not been able to obtain this documentation, so I don't want to give false hope, but it is something that we have continually been working on for the last week and a half.
All right. So if you can look at that, and if you can track down the documentation, that would be great. And then just clarify, I hope, with the city attorney's office to make sure that that's okay to be doing that agreement's been looked at and signed by the legal department of both, I guess, the state as well as the city. So
Mr. Chair. I'll
Just to
definitely
make
follow-
sure.
Yes, sir. I'll definitely follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I speak?
Sure, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, so we got all the documentation that's required from mile long from the company that Inspector Tapia wanted. We also made all the corrections with the exit light and all of that. So he's due to come back, I believe, tomorrow. I have a phone call into him earlier today, but we kept missing each other. So, but I will speak to him in the morning and hopefully he'll be back and sign off on everything tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions from committee members? What are the wishes of the committee?
Approve.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, second by Councilor Beta. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Pisula?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
I'm going to abstain again until I get the information, hopefully by tomorrow night's meeting.
okay, Councilor Romana Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne B. Hill Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Pisula. Let's move on to item C, which is request for approval of a budget increase to the Public Utility Billing Division for several line items for a total amount of $454,919. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, you pull this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I wanted to point to the little chart that delineates the funds. The last two, we have cubicles, walls, plexiglass for COVID, safe work environment, 10,000, and operating supplies, masks, face shields, etc. I received a phone call from a concerned public member, I guess, who has a family that works in the water division. And I relayed to him that we had this request for us tonight and that it included these things to provide a more safe work environment. That's really important, as you know, we all know, especially now with more strict measures put in place by the governor. But if we're not overseeing and managing and ensuring that we provide and insist on safe workplaces, none of this 15,000 or any other money we've spent is going to help. We have to, much as we don't like it, I mean, it's we all know what I mean, but we have to enforce it. And there is concern that employees are not being required to wear the face masks. They're not being required to social distance. And it is very scary for the other employees who take care of their elderly parents or family members. They're going home to their children. I'm told there sometimes are people in there that shouldn't be in there, and that because other people work from home, they don't see what's going on. And there's a little bit of fear in bringing this up. And as you know, when things aren't going well, we all get phone calls or emails or something. So things that I know we need to take more seriously. We're spending money on these things, then we better well use them and we better well enforce the use of them. So I think, I'm just going to say, even though we don't work there as counselors, we kind of know what's going on. So please, anyone here that has a responsibility to manage the group with regard to COVID, it is very serious. Our numbers are going up, and we've had some instances of people catching COVID and in our city, and it affects everyone. We just had some new reports in the fire department. I mean, it affects everyone. So I just want to say that if we're going to approve this money tonight, which I very much favor, we need to do a better job of making sure the employees use it, follow social distancing. Only those who are required to be in the workplace should be in the workplace, not anybody else. And those of you who manage from home, well, you're going to have to find another way to find out what's going on, because this is going on all around us. And I've had many reports. I report it to the city manager, and I don't know what happens from there. But we have to take more responsibility for this. So that is my little lecture here. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, can you respond to that briefly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Councillor Vihel-Coppler. I do agree. I'd like to say I also get notifications. Our staff is definitely under the microscope. We do take this very serious. I believe it is a constant communication. If there are things that we can do better, we're constantly assessing how we can do better. Your points that you made are taken. I do feel that those are communicated, and we continue to ramp up those communications, and ultimately also try to find ways for our employees to be successful, not just in their job, but in this, within the standards of the pandemic and things we're working with. So I do hear what you're saying. I would like to reassure the council that Public Utilities does take that serious. Those communications are happening, and we're continuing to work to make each day a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I would suggest that you find a way to encourage employees to call and report anything like this to you, make them feel free and less fearful. I don't mean to say that they're fearful of you, but they have supervisors in between you and them. So, there's got to be a way where they're feeling like it can be an open door. And maybe, I said this to the city manager, maybe because there's been many instances, and some of them are in wastewater. You probably know that, where I've been called and reported to the city manager, and I've finally ended up saying, well, maybe now the supervisors and managers need to be held accountable with more strict measures. I think, when people are charged with supervising others, they need to be concerned certainly about the work product and the task and all those things that employees are required to do. But now we have a new measure of COVID safety that we all have to be concerned with, because it doesn't just affect employees, it affects their families and friends and anywhere they go. And the sooner we get a hold of this, the sooner we can be free to roam this city and with some fun, not just like grocery store. So, I just would urge you to find some new creative way to get this message through and let employees know and managers know, supervisors know that this is a serious issue. And for those who still have to report to work, they don't have the leisure of working from home. They have to go there every day. They need to feel assured that they are safe and that people, much as they hate to, they have to wear their masks and stay away from each other, so to speak. So anyway, try something different. I guess that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions? What are the wishes of the committee for item C?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval from Councilwoman Vihel-Coppler, second from Councilor Garcia. Any further discussion? Seeing we have a roll call vote, Ms. Pisola?
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councillor Romana Beta,
Yes.
Councillor Joanne Vihel-Coppler,
Yes.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Pisola. We're on to item D, request for approval of a bar for Public Utilities Department to fund vacant positions for the amount of $2,940,219.85 across 12 Public Utilities section. Councilwoman Vihel Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully support this. I am wondering, Mr. Jones, are these vacancies that, like, they're all yours, right? And there's a bunch of them. And I'm wondering, how in the world does anything get done with all these vacancies? Like, how long have they been vacant?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Vihel Coppler. Yeah, I think we are looking at about 44 positions. It is a performance measure that we track. Utilities does run between an 80 and 85% staffing level. Being able to identify each position is a little harder to do because of the structure and the way that we're built. A lot of our classifications are built within a career ladder mentality. So one vacancy within a section would be filled by an internal candidate, which would increase another vacancy. So even though you filled a position, your percent of actual staff didn't really change. And so it takes multiple positions being filled to backfill those. So I do believe that we probably do have positions that are hard to fill that have been going on probably a year to year and a half vacant that we're actively seeking to fill. But some of the positions are also, I would say, more entry level, day-to-day, boots on the ground, right, truck drivers, entry level positions that have become vacant either because people have moved on or because they have moved up within the city and the rankings. And so we do agree, right? 44 positions is a burden to public utilities. How we maintain is, right, people have to do more work. And so I think we have a great group that steps up and does that work, but I think everybody knows that that's not a sustainable approach, which is why I'm back before the governing body. I committed to my directors when we did put a pin in these positions to really understand the economic impact. I committed to them at the time that once I had more information that I would personally bring this back forth to get them the budget to get those back on track. Right now, they do work very hard to maintain the level of service that people expect from public utilities. Getting these positions filled, right, will make that easier and more sustainable in the long run.
Well, I have a question. Are these, I remember when we were meeting in person and each of your divisions would report on the HR vacancy, status. And at that time, my recollection was we had maybe like 7 or 11, and that was kind of consistent as we met. But then to see this, did this all come as a result of the hiring freeze? Or, well, it looks like you didn't even have the budget anyway, because this was part of the sanding from a year ago on during budget request and approval, or what is the reason? Maybe it's all of those. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Vihel Coppler, I think you probably do see an uptick because of the work that we did come out of the last fiscal year on the budget, putting some of our active recruitments on hold, did set back some of the divisions a couple months. I do believe the staff really did try to do a good job of communicating to you towards the end of last year. Specifically, each division would provide you a list of vacancies and kind of where they're at and how they're tracking dates. This does, I don't have access to that information. I know the division directors do. But each 4 divisions were providing those updates. So I would like to think that at least between the 3 larger divisions, water, wastewater, and environmental services, I'd like to think that likely each one was reporting anywhere from 11 to 14 positions. And now they're just all combined as a whole department.
Well, it doesn't.
So I don't think it's much further from the target of where we were.
It doesn't look like we've made any headway. So the other thing I wanted to ask, and maybe, I know you have them all similarly titled because they're position. Are any of these, are all of these full-time classified, or are they a mixture of half-times and term and temporary? We don't have temporaries, or do we have temporaries?
These positions are all full-time classified. positions.
Wow. So, you know, I'm very happy to vote for this, but then you're going to have another problem when you try to recruit, because it's going to take a lot of time to get the process through. And I don't know what your approach is, and that's not really part of the discussion here, but you know, I do think that there's no way this doesn't cause undue hardship on employees. I mean, I'm sure they like overtime pay if it throws them into that to pick up the slack from all these vacancies, but there's a time where it wears you down too. And then we have COVID and everybody's sort of afraid of catching it. So I'm just, I don't know, I guess I'll say a prayer for you. I don't know what else to say, and you vote yes, maybe, but
We do appreciate that, and I'm working very close with human resources. They're aware of our situation, and so a lot of the paperwork has been done in parallel. So once we get the governing body's approval, the funding's in place, I do anticipate that these positions will be posted. Utilities will be putting forth an aggressive outreach campaign to move into our industry pools and circles, and we're gonna give all of our effort to fill as many as we can.
all right. Well, I wish you well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? What are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion for approval by Councilwoman Vihel Coppler, second from Councilor Beta. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, Ms. Pisola.
Chairman Christopher Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Roman Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Joanne Viho Koppler,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Pisola. Next, any matters from staff? Mr. Jones?
No matters from staff from Public Utilities, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wheeler?
No matters from staff for Public Works. Thank you, Julie.
Okay, matters from the committee? See none. Matters from the chair. I do have a resolution that Jesse sent me to read in. It's a resolution that I'm sponsoring and Lindell and Villarreal are co-sponsoring. It's a resolution repealing resolution number 2020-36 and accepting a municipal arterial program, a MAP cooperative agreement from the New Mexico Department of Transportation, identified as control number L500429 for the planning, design, and construction of Agua Fria Street and South Meadows Road intersection improvements. So that has been read into the record. So that's all I had. With that, our next meeting is Monday, October 26, 2020. I want to thank you all for, it's been a busy start of the week for all of us, including staff. So thank you all for your hard work and your diligence. I appreciate it. With that, we are adjourned.
Bye.